It is time to meet another monster from the Cedric series. It's not that I don't necessarily have monsters in my other series, but I have so many in this series, I kind of want to show them off. We discussed and I kind of shared with you the Heliodromos, but really we have this big selection of Chimera or Mod Podge kind of medieval bestiary type creatures throughout. And of course, I just recently was on a podcast with Eerie Travels that should be airing shortly about talking about medieval bestiaries and the craziness of what those were and the intent and the speculations that Mark Munzie and I have about them. But regardless, I do have a classic Chimera in here. And I am going to share with you that moment when it attacks. So you're in for a ride. I've read this one before at a couple of events, so enjoy. They were a day shy of clearing the dense patch of forest. Camping out in the thick brush, Angeline had come across a large buck. A 10-12 pointer with its shoulders as wide as a large stallion scraped its antlers against the tree in the distance. Her heart thudded in her ears. This was going to be the largest kill she had ever taken down. Thinking over her studies, she took her time identifying the different kill spots, choosing which would leave her the best chance to hit her mark. It was unclear how she was going to manage to drag the deer back to camp, but she was not going to let this one go. The fur was worth the effort alone, not including the amount of meat and the use of the horns for new handles for her daggers. Drawing her arrow back, she paced herself. Deer were fickle, and utter silence was of the utmost importance. She was blessed to have started her life as a farmer starter, learning the art of skinning, preserving, and, more importantly, knowing the many ways to stitch leathers into common goods. The snapping of a frozen branch caught the buck's attention, and he drew his head high, eyes wide as his ears flicked about nervously. Squinting, holding back the cursing, she looked down at her feet, expecting to see the branch she had leaned into, but found nothing. A crunching of the snow to her left set her hair on end as a large paw rested there next to her. She could smell blood and dirt coming from the creature as it crouched in the shrubs close to her, clearly unaware of her presence. Her eyes grew wide as she took in the sight of the Chimera. The heat of its breath melted the snow in front of it, its massive lion's head and mane crowned with 4 curving horns of a goat. Its back half flowed out from its feline front into a split-hooved creature. The tail whipped side to side as its scales glittered in the sunlight. The sight of the eyeless serpent's head at its end made her bite her bottom lip until she tasted the iron of her blood across her tongue. Repeating lessons of stealth, she hoped to keep calm as her thoughts flew. Her lip remained in her mouth, fearing the smell of her blood would reveal her to the massive creature. The sound of something metallic caught her attention, and she saw that it wore a crude collar buried in its mane. This was a sign that this creature belonged to the sorceress Morrighan. And as she looked back at the large buck, it was obvious he was part of a pack. 2 smaller chimeras were stalking on the other side of the deer, which stood stone still, unaware of the glowing eyes approaching. Another pop of a branch from a smaller chimera sent the buck jolting toward her and the large monster. With effortless grace, the beast pounced, shattering the antlers of the deer with one large, aggressive bite. The 3 creatures fought over the deer, ravaging it across the snow, painting it a gruesome red in the sunlight. Slowly, she backed herself out of the shrubs, hoping that their prey and hunger kept them blind to any movement in the area. Panic was causing her to shake. She struggled to switch her focus from the chimeras to her feet. They were consuming the deer so fast. There was no way she could make enough distance to get away. Her shoulder bumped against a tree, and looking up, it became clear this was her only chance to remove herself from the immediate danger. Climbing as swiftly and silently as she could, she was thankful for her new rabbit's fur gloves. Managing to get a good height up, she pulled her bow off her shoulders and readied herself just in case. A sensation of anger hit her, and instinctually she looked back toward the way of camp. She could see glimpses of Cedric's red hair through the far-off trees approaching. He had sensed her fear, but could not possibly know the cause for it. Panicking, she whistled the birdsong he had taught her in case of danger in order to warn each other. In the process, she neglected to prevent the spraying of blood from her lips. The chimeras froze and started sniffing the air in her direction, and Cedric broke into a run. So that's their encounter in this Cedric series. Cedric the Demonic Knight, book 1, by the way. A lot of this stuff I'm reading, by the way, is book 1, and I still haven't spoiled all the good bits. It's very action-packed, very monster-heavy, and I'll talk a little bit in another video today about what I've done for each of these books. But that is Chimeras, and a little bit. So they're these big, more lion-esque, but I liked the idea, and this was influenced by there's something called the Florida worm lizard, and it looks like a snake with no eyes. So that encounter in real life kind of inspired my description a little bit of what their tails look like. So there's sort of a hodgepodge of a lot of classic known elements, as well as things that I've encountered in real life. So that was a lot of fun. That fight gets kind of rough, and we get our first taste of the maker of Cedric himself, and feelings start to mingle a lot, and a lot of character development unfolds shortly after this. So, but find this in my TikTok shop, on my website, anywhere books are sold. If you want a signed copy, buy from TikTok or willisauthor.com, and see you guys on the flip side.